Welcome back, everyone. Today we're taking a deep dive into the world of football, but with a twist.
A twist indeed.
We'll be exploring the fascinating journey of Rúben Amorim, a name you might recognize, especially if you follow the Premier League.
Absolutely. He's a name that's been making headlines and causing quite a stir in the football world.
We've got excerpts from a biography about him, and let me tell you, it's a story that goes beyond the usual manager's tale.
Oh, it definitely goes beyond the usual. We're talking about a guy who had to retire early due to injuries, then suddenly finds himself rocketing through the coaching ranks, and boom, now he's at the helm of Manchester United.
Manchester United, it's hard to imagine a bigger stage in football, so where do we even begin with a story like this?
Well, I think the best place to start is by understanding how Amorim's playing days actually shaped his coaching philosophy. It's almost like he took those midfield instincts he honed on the pitch and translated them directly to the sidelines.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Paint that picture for me. How does a midfielder transform into a tactical mastermind?
It all started pretty early for Amorim, just like many aspiring footballers. He was born in Lisbon back in 1985 and started his journey at, you guessed it, Benfica's youth academy.
Benfica, talk about a breeding ground for talent.
Exactly. But even back then, Amorim wasn't just about raw talent. People who knew him back then talk about his incredible tactical intelligence, even as a young player.
So he was already thinking like a coach while he was still out there playing the game.
You got it. And that deep understanding of the game, that ability to see the bigger picture, that's been absolutely key to his success as a manager. He wasn't just kicking the ball. He was dissecting the game, seeing the patterns, figuring out how all the pieces fit together.
That makes sense. And of course, winning 3 Premier League titles with Benfica probably didn't hurt either.
3 titles. Talk about a winning mentality instilled early on. But then 2017 hits and everything changes. Amorim is forced to retire early because of those persistent injuries.
You'd think that would be a devastating blow, maybe even the end of his football story.
It was definitely a turning point, a major crossroads. But instead of walking away from the sport he loved, Amorim did something unexpected, almost like those injuries lit a fire under him, pushed him to explore the game from a completely different angle.
And that's when he takes that leap into coaching.
Head first. It's like he dove right in, fully committed to this new chapter.
Now, this is where things get really interesting. He didn't just ease into coaching, he went all in.
Absolutely. Started small, of course, working his way up the ladder, proving himself at every step. But what really started turning heads was his fresh perspective on tactics. It wasn't the same old, same old.
So what was it about his tactics that made people sit up and take notice?
Well, a perfect example is his breakout moment at Braga. 2020, he leads them to victory in the Taça da Liga, the League Cup. Suddenly, everyone's talking about this young manager.
Winning a cup is always a big deal, but it sounds like it was more than just the win itself.
Exactly. It was how he did it. He took this team that wasn't exactly considered a favorite, definitely didn't have the same resources as some of the giants in Portuguese football, and turned them into champions. That's what really got people's attention.
I can see why that would make people take notice. It's one thing to manage a team full of superstars, but it's another thing entirely to unlock that potential in a team that's maybe been overlooked.
That's what I mean when I say he gets the best out of his players.
It's that ability to spot talent, to motivate and inspire that really stands out.
And that's exactly what caught the eye of Sporting CP, a club with a lot of history, but also, a long title drought they were desperate to break.
And so we arrive at March 2020. Amorim takes the reins at Sporting CP. Some might have called it a gamble given how short his coaching resume was at the time.
It was a bold move, for sure, both for him and for Sporting CP. But Amorim seems to embrace risk, and this is where his signature, his innovative 3-4-3 formation, really comes into play. Caught everyone off guard.
This 3-4-3, break it down for us. What's so special about this formation? How did he use it to shake things up?
Think of it this way. He created this dynamic, fluid system. A team that's rock solid on defense, almost like a wall, but then bam, they transition into this lightning-fast counterattack. That's Amorim's 3-4-3 in a nutshell.
So a rock-solid defense combined with the ability to strike quickly on offense doesn't sound like a bad combination.
It wasn't bad at all. Sporting CP, under Amorim's leadership, ended their 19-year league title drought right there in the 2020-2021 season.
Talk about making a statement. Not only did he prove his tactical genius, but he also showed he could motivate a team to achieve something that had seemed impossible for so long. So we're talking about a manager who took a team struggling to find its footing, a team with a history of falling short, and turned them into champions. It makes you wonder, what's the secret sauce here? Is it just the formation, or is there something more to his managerial philosophy?
Well, it's not just about the formation itself. It's about how he applies it, how he gets his players to execute it. But even more than that, it's the philosophy behind it. He's all about this high-pressing style, so his teams are constantly harassing their opponents, forcing them into mistakes.
I can imagine that's pretty intense for the other team.
It is. And then, the moment they win the ball back, they explode into these rapid counterattacks. It's like they flip a switch, turning defense into offense in a blink of an eye.
So we're talking about a system that requires a lot of energy, a lot of intensity from the players.
Absolutely. And that's where his other key principle comes into play, trust in young players. He's not afraid to give those young, hungry players a chance to shine.
Interesting. So instead of just going after the big name established players, he's looking for potential, looking for that raw talent he can develop.
Exactly. He sees potential where others might just see inexperience. And he gives those young players a platform to thrive in this high-energy system.
It's almost like he's injecting fresh blood into the team, creating this dynamic, energetic force that's hard to contain. It's a fascinating approach, and it seems to work amazingly well for him. But I'm curious, when we talk about those rapid counterattacks, can you, break that down for us, paint a picture? What does that actually look like on the field?
Sure. Picture this. The other team, they're trying to build an attack, right?
Hmm.
But they're met with this relentless pressure from Sporting's players.
Yeah.
They're hounded, forced into making a mistake, and then boom, the ball's intercepted.
Okay, so they're not just clearing the ball, they're already thinking about the attack.
Exactly, like a switch flips, right?
Yeah.
The midfielders, they spring into action, launching this laser-focused pass upfield. And that's where those young, energetic players we talked about come in. They burst forward, incredible speed, exploiting the space left behind those surprise defenders.
Yeah.
It's really something to see when it all comes together.
It sounds like, I don't know, a perfectly choreographed dance or something, but one that requires a ton of skill and athleticism from the players.
It does. And that's why Amorim's focus on player development is so important. He's not just looking for raw talent. He's looking for players who are, intelligent, adaptable, willing to buy into his system.
And that kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier, his own experience as a midfielder. He knows what it takes, right? That vision, that quick thinking.
You're exactly right. As a midfielder, Amorim was known for his distribution, his ability to control the tempo with the game. And now, as a coach, he's instilling those same qualities in his players.
It's almost like he's cloned himself, spread his midfield DNA throughout the whole team.
I like that analogy. But it's not just about copying his own style, right? It's about seeing what each player brings to the table, their unique talents, and then fitting them into the system where their strengths can really shine.
So it's not just a rigid, one-size-fits-all approach. There's room for, for individual expression within his system.
Absolutely. He's not afraid to, tweak his tactics, make little adjustments here and there depending on the opponent, the situation. But those core principles, that high pressing, the quick transitions, that dynamic midfield, those always stay the same.
So it's like he's playing chess out there on the pitch, always a few moves ahead of his opponent.
I think that's a great way to put it. He's always thinking, anticipating, and he gets his players to think that way too.
It's interesting to think about that mental side of his coaching. It's not just physical skills. It's about cultivating a certain mindset, a way of approaching the game.
Exactly. And that's where his leadership qualities, they really shine. He's not just a tactician. He's a motivator, a leader who inspires his players to push themselves.
And that leadership, that ability to get the best out of his players, we've seen it throughout his career, right? Even before those big wins at Sporting CP, there were signs.
Oh, for sure. Go back to his time at Braga. He takes over a team that had a mid-table finish the season before, and then boom, she leads them to a cup victory. It wasn't just luck. He instilled this belief, created a winning culture.
It's like he unlocked something within that team, a potential maybe even they didn't know they had.
And that's what makes him so exciting to watch. He's not just about those short-term results. It's about building something special, something that lasts.
Which, of course, brings us to Manchester United, I guess you could say monumental task ahead of him.
Yeah. He's gone from managing a team that hadn't won a league title in 19 years to one of the biggest, most scrutinized clubs in the entire world.
I mean, it's a huge step up, and the expectations, I can't even imagine.
They're enormous. But if anyone can handle that pressure, I think it's Rúben Amorim.
I'm curious, though, what are the specific challenges he's going to face at Manchester United? How's his approach going to have to evolve to succeed at that level?
Well, one of the biggest differences is just the sheer size and scale of the club. I mean, Manchester United is a global brand, millions of passionate fans all over the world. The media attention is, well, it's relentless.
So the spotlight is a lot brighter, the pressure a lot more intense than anything he's experienced before.
Oh, yeah. And then there's the weight of history. Manchester United has this rich tradition of success. The fans, they're desperate to get back to those glory days.
It's a lot to live up to, especially following in the footsteps of, legendary managers like Sir Alex Ferguson. How do you think he'll handle that legacy? Will he try to, emulate Ferguson, or will he kind of forge his own path?
I think it's got to be a bit of both. He'll definitely draw inspiration from Ferguson, but he'll also need to, to establish his own authority, his own identity.
And that's what makes this next chapter so intriguing, right? We know what he's capable of, but how's he going to adapt his style, his philosophy, to the unique demands of Manchester United?
That's the million-dollar question. One thing's for sure, though, he won't shy away from the challenge. He's a fighter, a competitor, and he's going to want to prove that he belongs at the very top.
And he's not afraid to make tough decisions. We've seen that, throughout his career, from his bold tactics to, his willingness to trust those young players.
You're right. He's not afraid to shake things up. And that's what Manchester United needs right now. A manager who's not afraid to, challenge the status quo, who has a vision for the future.
It's exciting to think about the impact he could have on the club, the players, even the whole Premier League. Could he be the one to bring Manchester United back to the top of English football?
It's definitely possible. He's got the tactical skills, the leadership qualities, the hunger to succeed. But, he'll need a little bit of luck along the way, too.
Luck is always a factor, but I get the feeling Amorim isn't the type to just sit back and, hope for the best. He seems more like, I don't know, the type who makes his own luck.
Yeah, I see what you mean. He's proactive, that's for sure. And you see that in his commitment to youth development. It's risky, but the potential payoff could be huge.
Instead of, throwing money at established stars, he's investing in the future, building from the ground up.
Exactly. Nurturing that young talent, shaping them, to fit his vision.
It's a long game, but one that could really benefit Manchester United in the long run.
Oh, absolutely. And it's kind of refreshing to see, isn't it? In the football world, it's often so focused on instant results, the next big signing.
Yeah, it's almost, I don't know, philosophical. Building something sustainable, something that'll last beyond his own time at the club.
Exactly. And that brings us back to his time at Sporting CP. He took a club that had been, kind of in the shadows for almost 20 years, and he brought them back to the top.
So if he could do that with Sporting, imagine what he could achieve at Manchester United.
With all those resources, that global fan base, the possibilities are, well, they're pretty exciting.
It is exciting to think about, but let's play devil's advocate for a second. What about the potential downsides? What could trip him up at Manchester United?
That's a good question. I think one of the biggest challenges he's going to face is, managing those big egos.
Ah, right. Manchester United, they attract some of the biggest names in the game.
Exactly. And those big names often come with big personalities and even bigger expectations.
So it's not just about tactics on the field, it's about managing those personalities off the field as well.
100%. He's got to create this cohesive unit, a team where everyone's pulling in the same direction.
It's a delicate balance, for sure. And it's not just the players, right? There's that intense media scrutiny that comes with being the manager of Manchester United. Every decision, every result, it's all under a microscope.
Yeah, that media pressure, it can be brutal. It can really, derail a manager, especially one who's relatively new to the Premier League spotlight.
It's a pressure cooker, that's for sure. We've seen plenty of talented managers crumble under the weight of those expectations. But, something tells me Amorim's a bit tougher than that.
Yeah, I think you're right. He seems to, thrive under pressure, uses it as fuel.
Remember, he faced setbacks as a player. Injuries cut his career short, right, but he bounced back, started coaching in the lower leagues, worked his way up, faced doubts, criticism, but he never seemed to waver in his belief in himself and his way of doing things.
I think you're right. It's like those challenges, they shaped him into the manager he is today. Someone who's not afraid to take on the toughest jobs, face the toughest opponents, embraces that pressure.
And maybe that's what's so captivating about his story. It's that blend of, tactical brilliance, that unwavering belief, that quiet determination. It's a powerful combination. And it's going to be fascinating to see how it all unfolds at Manchester United.
It's a story that's still being written, for sure. Who knows what the next chapter holds? Will he bring Manchester United back to their glory days? Will he revolutionize the Premier League with his tactics, his focus on youth development? We'll just have to wait and see. But one thing's for sure, Rúben Amorim, he's a manager to watch.
He's a rising star. And his journey is one that we'll definitely be keeping a close eye on.
And that wraps up our deep dive into the world of Rúben Amorim. A fascinating figure, wouldn't you say?
Definitely. A reminder that sometimes, those unexpected twists and turns in life, they can lead to something truly remarkable.
It's a reminder that football, it's always evolving. And there are these brilliant, passionate minds out there, like Amorim, who are shaping its future.
Well, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive, but we hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to check back for our next episode where we'll be, who knows. The world of football is full of surprises. Until then, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.